All right, so we're in chapter 7 here. We're going to cover roofs. Like I mentioned earlier, roofs are not significantly different than floors. They're horizontal elements, especially flat roofs. They have assemblies just like floors have assemblies, so we'll build those assemblies up. Chapter 7 will probably take us 2 days. So we'll go through it at a pace that works for us. If it ends up rolling into a third day, that's not the end of the world. If we wrap it up early, that's also not such a bad thing. All right, chapter 7, roofs. Roofs come in all shapes and sizes. Given the nature of roofs, there is a lot to think about when you place a roof onto your building. If it's a flat roof, pitch is definitely a consideration. We do all realize that there is not ever, well, there should never truly be a flat roof. Even a flat roof has slope to it. So as designers and architects, you still have to think about, how do I get water off this surface? And I'm going to tell you that code tells you a flat roof has to have a slope of 1/4 of an inch to a foot minimum. I typically design them at 1/2 of an inch to a foot minimum, because by the time the contractor actually installs it, you're lucky that you end up with 1/4 of an inch to a foot minimum on a flat roof. It's just something to take into account. Where was I? Drainage to roof drains and scuppers is another concern. But how about pitched roofs? Now you're into the entirely new realm of options, pitches, slopes, and everything else you can throw at a roof design. Also, there are always dormers that no pitched roof can live without. The dormers align with the eaves, or they're set back from the building. This chapter covers the following topics: placing roofs by footprint, creating a sloping roof, creating a roof by extrusion, and adding roof dormers. Placing a roof by footprint. I'm going to say that this is probably one of the easiest ways to place a roof, especially if you're doing a sloped roof. Because essentially you're defining the edge of the roof and the slope. That slope can be no slope at all, and it can be all the way up to well, almost any slope, I would assume. I've never tried anything over 12, but I assume it could be 18-12 or 20-12 if you wanted it to be. All right. So we're going to place a couple different types of flat roofs using the place by footprint: a flat roof, a gabled roof, and a hip roof. Flat roofs by footprint. To begin, open the file you've been using, or chapter 7. I again recommend you start with the new file every time you start the chapter. The objective of this procedure is to create a flat roof by outlining the building's geometry in the plan. Follow these steps. In the project browser, double-click on the roof view in the floor plan section. All right, so we haven't gone to this level yet, but let's go to your roof view, and it should look something like this, which is just a plan view of the roof layer, right? Zoom into the east wing. In the view properties, find the underlay row and select none from the menu. I don't know if we've talked about underlays or not, but you can think of underlays in Revit like trace paper. So right now it already says it has an underlay of none. If I went in here and said, hey, I want to see level 5 as an underlay and apply, you can see that I have the level 5 walls in a lighter color, gray. So if I needed to follow those for some reason. So again, that's why I say think of it like trace paper. For what we're going to be doing, we don't need to see the walls, so I'm going to change that underlay back to none. Does that make sense to everybody? It can be a very, very useful tool, and you can underlay any plan on any other plan. So you could underlay the third floor reflected ceiling plan if you needed to on the roof plan. Don't know why you would need to, but you have that type of flexibility. Select all the CMU walls. So what's one way to do that?
Hover and press tab.
Yeah, you can select one and then press tab. You could select and hold down the control key and select the next one and select the next one. But it's all about efficiency at the end of the day, right? So get into the habit of using the tab button. Select all the CMU walls. Item 6, set the top level to roof. Alright. So I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to look at my top constraint. I'm going to push it up to level roof. Set the top offset to 1 foot. So what does that mean?
It's gonna go 1 foot.
No, actually, I think it says negative 1 foot. It's very small type in your book. Do all your books say negative 1 foot? Item 7, negative 1 foot.
So it'd be 1 foot underneath.
So it'd be 1 foot underneath the roof level. Does that make sense? So we're still using the level to control or constrain that verticality of that wall. But now we're using the level and an additional piece of information. This is why if we have like a mezzanine level or a landing on a stair, something of that nature, we don't need to add a new level. We can say, hey, level 1 and have an offset of several feet. And it's still tied to level 1. So remember when we made levels earlier in this semester, I said, hey, don't get crazy and make a level for every single thing that's on. You can have major levels and then offset from them to get the constraints you need. All right. On the Architecture tab, click Roof, Roof by Footprint. Go up the Architecture tab. Uh-oh.
Would we then need to go like the parapet level since it's 1 foot below the roof level?
Well, let's see. We have a minor problem here, right? So what happened?
It doesn't show up on the roof plan because it's 1 foot below the roof plan.
Yeah, so let's go look at our elevation real quick. Here's the roof, 1 level below the roof. Now, if we want to see this in the roof plan, what do we have to do?
Underlay.
No, we got to edit the view range of our roof. You guys recall doing that earlier when we were working with views? So this is a good example of, hey, I've ran into a problem. How do I solve the problem? Go back to roof plan, and I'm going to come down here to my view range, and I'm going to say that my associated bottom is no longer the roof, but it's level 5, and view depth level 5. If I hit OK and apply, now it came back. But what also came back with it?
The partitions.
The level 5 partitions. Because there's no geometry between me and the level 5 partitions. Does that make sense? So the book doesn't tell you to do that, but I believe that there's a typo in the book. And the reason I believe there's a typo in the book is typically your roof level is going to be your roof, and then your walls would go up to your parapet level, right? And if we go back to level or an elevation, that would make sense, right? If we were modeling our roof here, that our parapet, the wall should come up above it. So let's augment what the book has asked us to do, and let's go back in to our roof. Oh, roof ceiling plan is not going to do me a whole lot of good. My roof floor plan. I'm going to select all these walls. And I'm going to tell them, I actually want you to go up to the parapet level. And hit apply. Where's the what?
You said there was a typo?
It asks us to constrain the walls to the roof level, and I'm telling you should constrain the walls to the parapet level, not the roof level. And I'm going to fix my view range, right? So I don't see those walls anymore. So click off the walls, come down to the view range, and say that I want the bottom of that to be the roof level. Where did you go? West roof, level below, associated roof. Hit apply. Alright. So now I have something I can work with, right? And I can actually see, which is important. So now let's go to architecture, roof by footprint. What did it immediately do? Put us into sketch mode. So we should be familiar with kind of this sketch mode. Some things that we probably are not familiar with. See this box right here? It says define slope. On a flat roof, are we going to have any slope? We will, but we're going to add that slope in by modifying the sub-elements, so we really don't want that. We don't want that option. We don't want the overhang option. And we don't want it to extend to the wall core, because it's going to go to the face of the wall. And I'm going to use the Pick Walls tool. Alright, so I use tab to select all of them. I use the flippers to move it inside. Is that a closed loop? It looks like a closed loop. All right, congratulations, you've created your first roof. And to show you that we've actually done something, we'll go into 3D, and we have a roof. Was that difficult? No, not at all. Now, does this actually function the way a roof would function? No, we said that a flat roof has to have slope. So we're going to go in now and create the slopes that would be required to actually make this roof work properly. But before we do that, I'm going to pause and make sure everybody gets their roof to this point, because the next series of instructions is pretty detailed and you need to follow along with me pretty much item by item and make sure you get it right. So now we're at this point. We've created a roof plane. We're going to work on making this an actual flat roof system. Although you can use the system for a pitched roof, the steps for a flat roof system differ slightly. In Revit architecture, there are two ways to look at a roofing system. One is to create it by using all the typical roofing materials in a large space for the structural framing. In this book, I don't recommend that approach. Creating a roof by using only the roofing components is necessary, but adding the structural will lead to conflicts when the actual structural model is linked with the architectural model. Also, it's hard for the architect to guess what the depth of the structural framing will be. In Revit, you want each component to be as literal and as true to the model as possible. The second way to look at a roofing system, as you're about to explore, is to build the roof in a literal sense. That is, to create the roof as it would sit on the structural framing by the structural engineer. The objective of this procedure is to create a roof system by adding layers of materials. Follow these steps. Step 1, select the roof. If you're having trouble selecting the roof, remember the filter tool. Alright, so if I try to select this roof, it's very difficult, right? I got to be right in the right place. And you got to really be right at the edge of the roof. To make it easier, I can just draw a crossing window over here and go to the filter tool and say, hey, I only want roofs. It will do the same thing. Does that make sense? Alright, very good. In the Properties dialog box, click the Edit Type, because right now we have a basic roof, generic 12 inches. Click Duplicate. Call the new roof system 4-inch insulated concrete roof. Okay. Click OK. Now click the Edit button in the Structures row. This should look real familiar, right? We did this with the floors. Alright, and this should look real familiar, right? This Edit Assembly? Just identical to the one that we had with the floors. Alright. Change the material of the structure 1 to concrete. Alright, we do that by going to the material category, clicking this button. It'll bring up the material browser. We're going to type in concrete. Well, maybe.
4 inch inside.
And we're going to put concrete cast in place gray. Oh no, it wants us to use lightweight. So we'll use lightweight. We'll hit OK. Concrete lightweight. Beautiful. Change the structure thickness to 4 inches. Alright, 4 inches. Insert a new layer above the core boundary. You do this by clicking the number on the left side of layer above wrap row and clicking the insert button. Insert. Change the function of the new layer to thermal air layer. We talked about this earlier when we were talking about floors. This becomes important if you're talking about insulation, which is what we're going to add here. Select rigid insulation for the material. Give this a value of 4 inches. Click the variable button. What does that mean?
You can make it thinner and thicker.
Yeah, the insulation, the thickness of the insulation will vary as we slope the slab. And this is really how they do it in the real world. They may also warp the structural deck, but it's very common to use tapered insulation to get the slopes that are required. All right, item 7. Insert a new layer above insulation. Give it a function of finish 4. Change the material to EPDM. Which it's not important that you know what EPDM is, just that you know that's a type of roofing membrane. If you've ever seen roofing membrane, it's not very thick. It's maybe like a 1/16 of an inch thick, but you're not going to be able to see a 1/16 of an inch in your drawing, so we're going to give it a thickness of 1/4 of an inch. Oh, must have clicked on the wrong thing. Thickness. Alright, I'm going to pause right there and make sure you all have these layers. Okay, so we finished editing the assembly. I'm going to hit the preview button here to show you what the section looks like. And similar to what Carlos drew, we have a 1/4 inch EPDM membrane, we have 4 inches of rigid insulation, and we have 4 inches of concrete. Now just to show you that this and this actually match, if I come over here and say, give me a foot of rigid insulation, what happened? This changed over here. So I'm going to change that back to 4 inches. We're going to head back into the book, which tells us to click OK once, click OK twice. That will take us back into the model. Okay, so why did we do all of that?
So custom roof.
Yeah, so that we could actually, one, it matches the way that it would be actually built in the real world. That's important. That's one of the advantages of Revit, is we're making it as close to virtual building as possible. And 2, here in a second, we're going to start to add lines and slope things. And if we don't have a variable material, can we slope the floor? We can, but then it's going to slope the whole thing parallel, which is not what we're trying to achieve. So we're going to move on to the next part of the book, tapering a flat roof and adding drains. If you went through the floor procedure in Chapter 6, you'll see the process for tapering a roof is similar to pitching a floor. You may have also noticed that creating a roof system is identical to creating a floor system. To taper the roof insulation, you must first divide the roof into peaks and valleys, and then specify the drain locations based on centering of these locations. All right. Item 1. In the project browser, make sure you're in the roof floor plan. Take us back to here. Item 2. Select the roof. I happen to already have the roof selected. Great. Item 3. Click the Add Split Line button. That would be this tool right here. And now you can see we have some nodes, and what we want to do is basically add 2 split lines, one from here to here. I'm going to turn chain off. And hit escape. I'm going to do it again, add split line from here to here. Press escape twice or modify, and that will deselect your roof. Then we're going to select the roof. Select the roof, item 6. Item 7, click the Add Point button as shown in figure 7.8. Okay? Add point. And we want to add a point to the middle here. And we want to add a point to the middle here. Alright, so you can see we have some additional points and some additional split lines. Click the Add Split Line button and draw a ridge across the entire length of the building. Add split line. You want to go from this point here to that point there. But I think I have an issue, and the issue I think I have, you see how these 2 points are really close to each other, but they're not quite on top of each other? You see it right there? I have like 2 icons. That's not where I want it to be, so I need to make sure that I get this point and I drag it out to where it needs to go. In fact, what I'm going to do is I've made a mistake, right? Is that the end of the world? It's not the end of the world. There's a couple things you can do. The nuclear option here is to reset the shape. Unless you've really screwed up your shape, don't reset it. We can grab this type of stuff, and we still have all of our edit tools. So I should be able to... no, it's not going to let me use the edit tool inside the... Modify sub-elements. I should be able to use my edit tools here. Nope, not going to let me use my edit tools. I'm not inside the shape.
Jeff, how do I get out of temporary?
So hold on, please. Alright, so I am going to hit the nuclear option in this particular place because I can't find another way to fix my shape. So I'm going to reset the shape. What that's going to do is take out all the split lines and added points that I've put in. So because it's taken out all the split lines and added points, I'm going to walk back through that process again for you. And I'm going to be a little bit more careful this time. So I'm going to select this window. I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to tell it I only want my roof. I'm going to add a split line. I'm going to make sure that I'm snapping to that point. I'm snapping to that point. I'm going to make sure that I'm snapping to that point, and I'm snapping to this point. Very good. Then I'm going to add a point. I'm going to make sure that that point is here at the middle. And I'm going to come over here and make sure that that's at the middle. Then I'm going to add a split line. Make sure I have that point. And here, I'm gonna make sure I have the point. Now I have clean geometry and everything should work out the way I want it to work out. And that should take me through item number 9, figure 7.9. Alright. Now we're going to get out of that and we're going to draw 4 lines in here. But those lines are really only going to be for reference. So actually we're going to draw 4 reference planes. So item 11, draw 4 reference planes spaced approximately the same. Okay? So how do we invoke the reference plane command? RP. Very good. And we're going to start here and we're just going to draw it through. And now I could just continue to draw the 4 planes in. Are these equally spaced? So how am I going to make them equally spaced?
Array them.
No, I'm going to go to annotate. I'm going to grab an align dimension. And I'm going to click on these things. Oh, I screwed up. So let me delete that align dimension. Try it one more time. Inside face of the wall, first line, second line, third line, fourth line. And I'm going to hit EQ. And what's that going to do for me? Do I want things equally spaced when I'm talking about where I'm going to put my roof drains? Yeah, the more equally spaced, the more the stuff can be the same. The roof drain sizes can be the same. How I deal with it can be the same. All right. Press escape twice or click modify to terminate the command. I'll click modify. Select the roof. Now this roof is much easier to select because I can just go on one of these lines. So I have the roof selected. Click the add split line. Be sure to clear the chain option. Draw 4 ridges at the intersections of the reference planes. Great. So let's go in, add a split line. And I want to go at that intersection. I'm going to draw that. And make sure that you're getting the intersection. Same thing over here.
Oh, we're just going over those lines. Those were lines. Oh, that's on each section.
Alright, so when you're done, your roof should kind of look like this. That's a lot of breaks in that roof, would you agree? But that's going to be necessary to give us the valleys and the peaks that we need to make this roof slope. Alright, I want to pause real quick and make sure all of you guys get to this point. Alright, so now that we've drawn our 4 ridges, we're going to move on to the next step, which asks us to press escape twice with the modify button. Change the visual style to wireframe. We do that right down here. On the annotate tab, click the detail line button. Do that right here. What we're going to do with the detail line button is we're going to come in and draw a diagonal. And we're essentially drawing this diagonal so we can find the center point, because we're going to add a point there. So we're going to select the roof again. We're going to go to the add point. We're going to add the point at the middle of that line. So now, to edit that point that we just added, we're going to hit modify sub element. And just like we did in the floor, we're going to give that a dimension relative to the rest of the roof. In this particular one, it says give it -3 inches. And you'll notice that it added some break lines because it actually sloped the roof. Now, I don't agree with the design of this roof. I don't try to push water to the center of my roof. I always try to push water to the outside. But this is the way that the roof is designed in this book, so we're going to build it this way. So basically, it wants you to continue to add those points until you end up with something that looks like figure 7.16. So I'm going to do that very quickly to show you how to do that, and then you can work through it. So since I have this in place, what I'm going to do now is come out of it. I'm going to select that detail line, and since this really should be very much a mirror, I'm just going to mirror that line. Then I'm going to select it again, and I'm going to mirror it. Then I'm going to select it again, and I'm going to mirror it. And then I'm going to select all 5 of those lines. And I'm going to mirror them. So all I'm looking to do is get the midpoint. Then I'll select my roof again. And I'll add a point at this midpoint. And I'll add a point at this midpoint and this midpoint. And really this becomes repetition after a while.
Couldn't have just mirrored it once you were done?
So I was gonna ask, could you mirror points?
I don't know. No, I don't think you can mirror the add points. Now, could you have built 1/2 of the roof and then mirrored the whole roof? Yeah, but then Revit would read it as 2 different roofs. This way it reads it as 1 roof. And then we're just going to go in and modify those sub-elements. Now, I do believe... no, you can't. You got to add the -3 inches each place too. But that's okay. I prefer that you do it this way so that you understand when you're laying your roof out what all those elevations really are. Now with this roof design, what the designer is saying is at this low point that we're adding, each one of these there would be a roof drain. And if I was designing the roof as the architect, I'd want to push this water to the outside walls and have scuppers and drains at my outside walls. But since this isn't a roof design class, it's Revit, we won't critique the author's design of the building. Here in a second, I'm going to cut a section to show you what we've actually accomplished. So, as I mentioned when we were doing the floors, I'm really fond of cutting sections to see where I'm at in the work. And if we zoom in on the roof here, we can see that the points move up and down. From a high here to a down to a high to a down, all the way across the roof. And if I go into a 3D view, unfortunately it's difficult to see because the roof is all black, because my roofing material, my EDPM, is black. But if I roll over that, you can kind of see what the roof is starting to look like.